A man's virtue flows mostly from three separate sources: desire, emotion, and intelligence. Knowledge is a wise man's treasure, but beware of false doctrines, for they are more dangerous than ignorance. Forget all that you know, or think that you know. Abandon the hunger for power and enforced decrees. Look inward, where the deepest rivers flow. There you'll find the currents of eternity. And as always, my friends, welcome to my mania. Hey. It's Jake Johnson here, and you're watching live Untethered, coming to you from the internet. How are you doing today? What's up, Brian? Good to see you, buddy. Don't see you in these parts very often. What brings you to this neighborhood? I got my nice hot cup of coffee, nectar of the gods, ready to rock and roll. Got my Constitution, just in case anybody's, lacking in the knowledge of what it says. Here it is, for all to read. And it will scroll throughout the night, from one end to the other. Well, I'm glad you stopped in, man. You should come every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. I went down the wrong pipe. Whew. Thought I was gonna die on that one. I found a bone in my coffee. Goodness. Let's try it again. Whew. I hate it when that happens. Anyway, you should come every 8:30, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday, because we have a great time here on this podcast. And there's usually more people than just you and me here. And they'll be here shortly. And today's Friday, right? So Wednesday, we went through the Great Reset. We went through Event 201. We went through the Great Mouse Utopia experiments. We talked about the Constitution. We talked about voter fraud. We talked about all kinds of things. It was a good podcast Wednesday. Today, I have no idea what's in store. We're just going to fly by the seat of our pants and see where the wind takes us. I hope you'll hang out with us for a while. Right now, I'm just kind of shooting the breeze until everybody gets here. There's April. What's up, April? You missed it. I was choking on my coffee a minute ago. How's the weather in your neck of the woods? It's been kind of rainy here all day today. How's your mom doing? Good, I hope. Just seeing if Mama was coming on. She may. Missy talked to her on the phone a little bit yesterday, so I'm assuming she felt a little better. Unseasonably warm here, yeah. Well, all that heat has pushed the rain up this way, I guess, because it was kind of sprinkly today. It didn't ever rain hard, but it was like a steady drizzle on and off all day today. Just enough to where I couldn't get out and cut grass, which is what I wanted to be doing. I'm moving this weekend, so I'm in the process of getting my yard back in a livable arrangement in my house and getting my electricity inspected and cut back on, and moving everything out of the apartment and into the house after that. So it's going to be a busy week for old Jake. Been nice there? That's good to hear. Yes. Don't y'all know each other? You met before. You think it was too early? Well, there ain't a whole lot they can do after they've already done the deal. Hey, Mr. Mercer, what's happening, buddy? Hadn't seen you in a while. Nice to see you. Glad you could make it out. The only good thing about being there, April, is that they're on hand if anything happens. You know, they can rush in and take care of business. But other than that, after the deed is done, there's not a whole lot they can do. It's up to her body to heal from this point. So I guess it really doesn't matter if she can do that at the house or at the hospital, either one. Well, I'm glad you're here, sir. Today's Friday, so it's a chill stream. We're not going to get into anything real heavy, I don't think, unless the conversation just happens to go that way. Yeah. The weather that is ha 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 to everything else. I hear you. Choose. CHUSE. That's an interesting spelling of the word choose. Just making sure I can see it right. I got up this morning, was all geared up to go cut some grass, and I looked outside and it was raining. So I waited an hour or so to see if it would ease off, and I looked outside and it was still raining. It wasn't raining hard, but, you know, hard enough to get the grass wet, and you don't want to cut 4-foot high grass when it's wet. So, that ruined my plans for today. April says it's a sad puke of a world, such a shame. Yeah, I can't disagree with you there, honey. It's up to us to make it a better world, though. We have to strive to be better, to do better, to have better, to present ourselves as better. And thank you, Mr. Mercer. We can use all the prayers we can get. All of them we can get. Depressed and sad because of your mom, and I'm usually ... not depressed. Well, you shouldn't be depressed because she's making a recovery, and that's a good thing. That means she's coming out of the woods. She'll be back on her feet in no time. And that's the good Lord's doing, you can believe that. Because that's not an easy thing to come through. I don't think it's any big secret. I'm sure April can tell you all the details. It's not really my place to do so, but I feel like you feel. What's important is that we care about her. And this is just a taste of what's coming. Yes, I know. It's coming. This whole world don't get no better from here, and nobody makes it out of here alive, so. That's right, God knows. Mr. Cox, what's happening, brother? Good to see you. Glad to have you here. Nice to see all my friends out and running around. Oh, you're certainly welcome, April. On my behalf and theirs too, I guess. That's what community is for, and we're building a nice community here. And the more people we have in this community, the more we can help each other out. Prayers and all. Because when you have a group of people praying for the same thing, God tends to move. Believe that. Got to get a drink and a slice of pie. Pecan pie. Oh, I can't eat another bite. I'm stuffed to the gills. I'll be full for the next 3 days. I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving, by the way. It was a nice, intimate little Thanksgiving with me and my sister and her kids, and we just sat around and ate and talked for hours. It was lovely. She's so fragile, and I feel like I cannot even get close to Mama because of, I'm not saying no names, but this COVID thing is bullshit, I tell you. What, do you have COVID? If you don't have it, I wouldn't worry about it. But you can take my word for it. If you trust anything that I say, if you've learned that during my research that I aim for the truth, and if you've learned to trust anything that comes out of my mouth, hear me when I say this. COVID-19 is a very real disease, but it is no worse than the flu. There are not bodies piling up everywhere. The numbers are vastly askewed, and they're finding out that there's no difference in death rates before and after COVID. There's no difference. Not that many people have died from it, and the ones who did die, and I mean up to 90% of the ones who did die, were over 75 or had comorbidities, which means they were already sick of something else. You have about as much risk of dying of COVID as you do getting struck by lightning in a thunderstorm. So the risk is elevated, but it's not great. If you're healthy and under the age of 75, you have a 0.395% chance. That's less than 0.5% chance of even contracting it, let alone dying from it. But if you're worried about it, put a mask on and put some gloves on, and then go take care of your mama. Don't let that scare you. Believe me, what she just went through is way worse than anything a cold can do. My mic is low on your end. We'll turn up the volume. Let me see. Check, 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 check. I'm peaking on my end. I can't go much higher, it'll start clipping. Check, 1, 2, check, 1, 2. Yep, I'm as high as I can go, I'm sorry. It's all the way. Are you using headphones? If you are, you might try the other headphone, because it might be a mono signal. Check 1 2, check 1 2. Is that any better? That's about as loud as I can get. Maybe just me, but you were higher. No headphones. It might be YouTube also. I'm afraid that's going to start clipping right there. I'm tapped out at the top right now. So if you start hearing me rattling, that's what it's doing, it's clipping. Is anybody else having any trouble hearing me? Can you hear me fine? Check, check. 1 2. Check, check, check. Hit F if you're having trouble hearing me. You hear me well? Am I clipping or anything? Yes, I'm being careful wearing gloves, and I know she is vulnerable to catching anything because she is weak, but I hear you fine. Good. Okay, so it's just you, Brian, and I apologize for that. It might be whatever device you're listening through. But I got it up pretty high. It's not as high as it'll go, but any higher and it's going to start clipping. I'm already in the red. Well, dang, it's only low in landscape mode. Well, there you go. Turn your phone up and it's fine. You'll just have to watch me like this. You know what? Come to think of it, my phone does that too. When I'm listening to music, when I turn the volume up, it sounds great in my headphones, but as soon as the display goes off, the volume goes down. And then I have to turn it back on. So the only way I can hear it clearly is to have the lights on all the time, run the battery down. But as soon as this display shuts off, my volume cuts in half. There must be some feature on the phone that I hadn't figured out how to turn off yet. Erections. I think that just said erections. I gotta go back and read that again. Yes, it does. Consent of the legislature of the United States, in which the same shall be for the erection of forts. Oh, erection of forts. There's some horny forts out there, man. Magazines, arsenals, dockyards, and other needful buildings. And to make all laws which shall be necessary and proper for carrying into execution the foregoing powers, and all other powers vested by the Constitution in the government of the United States or in any department or office thereof. Wow. Back in landscape with speakers facing the other direction, and it's fine. Weird. Alrighty then. Mine does too. That's weird. Maybe we got some defective phones. But anyway, I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you can hear me now. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? How about now? Oh, Lord have mercy. It's because you have an equalizer open on the app. April knows her shit. I didn't even know that. Alrighty then. I missed Wednesday. Sorry, the government is to blame. Yeah, well, they're to blame for a lot of things these days, and I missed you on Wednesday. I did what you asked me to do, and I looked into all that stuff, so you'll have to go back and watch Wednesday to find out what I come up with. But we had a good podcast on Wednesday. They just knew nobody was here to watch it, except me and April. But it did get 11 or 12 views after the fact, so that's good. And there's 6 people watching now. and only 4 of them are talking. So that's okay. I'm crashing. Got to get up at 3 to run the route. All right, Mr. Mercer. Thank you for coming by. Yes, I was talking about the Great Reset. And I was talking about Event 201, and I tied those two together. And then I showed a documentary about the Great Mouse Utopia experiments, which shows how societies act when they're pushed into little cubicles and all their identity is taken away from them. And I showed the correlation between what's going on right now and what was going on back in ancient Rome and different places like that just before civilization fell for them, and how it's about to fall for us now. It was a good podcast. A lot of information. And if you like, we can get into a little bit more of it tonight. I pretty much made my case on Wednesday, but I can add the extra details tonight. Buy guns and get ready. Well, I own guns and I am ready. It was very interesting, and I have been thinking about it since. Good. Good. I'm glad to have that effect. Matter of fact, you guys want to get into a little bit of the details tonight? You want to hear what the guys that are doing it are talking about? I told him to watch it. Good. It's there whenever he's ready to watch it. I even got a nice new Fox News-like background for you guys and everything. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba, I'm loving it. All right. Well, let's switch over to the website view. Pow! Look at there. Wow. It's like I'm prepared for this shit. It's gonna cost you, Kev. Is it? What's it gonna cost him? All right. This is a guy named Klaus, and he is straight out of James Bond. He's a straight-up James Bond villain. You were absent the last 2 times, she says. Get her. Get him, April. Don't let him give you no shit about your ponytail. This guy's name is Klaus, and he's a straight-up Bond villain, and he is one of the people in the know about the Great Reset and what him and a few other guys are going to say over the next few minutes. This documentary is over an hour long, but I'm not going to play the whole thing. I'm just going to play little highlights or excerpts from it. But listen to what this guy has to say. I think you'll find it very interesting. And then we'll review.
Welcome, everybody, and thank you, Adrian. Let's first look at the impact COVID-19
All he needs is a little white cat to be stroking while he's talking.
probably has. We don't know yet the final outcome of this pandemic. There's a lot of uncertainty, but we know already that it will have a changing effect, changing on...
Can you hear that all right? When I reviewed Wednesday's podcast, the documentaries were very low in volume. Can you guys hear him talking okay? Let me know if it sounds good to you.
economies, societies. It's not just to be compared with the economic crisis which we had to pass through 10 years ago. The effect will be much similar to World War, and actually all countries in the world are affected. So if we look at the impact Of course, we first see the impact on global economic growth. Even in the most optimistic estimates of the IMF and OECD, we will be back to the output level of the end of 19 only at the, in the best case, only at the end of 21. So look at the debt which we are loading on our shoulders. The world was already indebted at an amount of over 300% of GDP. Now the rescue programs of the governments represent another $10 trillion, which will be added to our debt load and will have to be in some way be repaid by future generations. I'm also, of course, looking at the unemployment, which and the impact on livelihoods. We know many people, according to the ILO, about 50% of people in the world will be affected, combined, taking the combined effects of COVID-19 and the fourth industrial revolution. And finally, not to forget the figures. I mean, we look at the statistics, we see more than 500,000 people who have died. Just imagine the personal tragedy which is behind all those cases. So we have to be very careful not just to look at the figures. Now, when we look at COVID, I think we should distinguish between three phases. We have the three R's: restrain, which means to fight the virus, the hot phase. Most countries are in today. Then we have recover, to go back to a kind of new normal. And finally, the reset, which means to define and to design the strategies which should lead us in the after-corona phase.
All right, so basically what he's saying is, in a roundabout way, that the reason for all of the fear-mongering and the terrifying everybody and locking everybody down, even though we've proven that lockdowns don't work, keeping your mask on so that nobody has an identity, is to keep people docile while the economy collapses, because that is the only way that they can institute the Great Reset, is by collapsing our current economy, which at present has broken records 43 times in the last 4 years, 9 of which has happened while President Trump was going through an election and having a pandemic happening. So, Glenn Beck is a guy who talks on the internet. He's like a news guy, newscaster. But what I was saying was, what they're attempting to do is keep everybody locked away and without identity so that nobody will rise up while the economy crashes. And once the economy crashes, they're going to institute a new way of doing things, a new monetary system, if you will. The Great Reset, meaning they're going to reset our economic system. And that means new world order, new money. They're going to institute a one-world religion, a one-world government. That's the plan. I don't know if they're going to succeed in this plan, but that's what they're attempting to do right now. It's the beginning of all of those things to occur. And that's basically what this guy's laying out. And yes, he's kind of the enemy, but really he's just one cog in a big machine.
What is the objective? What kind of world do we want to build? What do we know? What did we learn? I think the world which we want to create with the Great Reset has to be much more resilient. It has to be, because security, people will demand for more security. Physical security, health security. Yeah. It will have to be more inclusive. We had already a big gap before the crisis started. This gap will be tremendously increased. So if we want to avoid some kind of social revolutions, and we have seen the signs of anger on the streets already the last weeks. So we have to address this issue to create a stronger inclusiveness. And finally...
Well, to some degree, there will be confinement camps in use, but it won't be for everybody. More than likely, the lower class people will probably end up in a place like that. But we're talking a couple of years down the road. It's not all going to happen at once. They can't move too fast or it'll shock people into a war. They have to go slowly and take it one piece at a time, like turning the heat up on a frog in a pot. If you throw him in a pot of hot water, he'll jump right out. But if you put him in nice cool water and slowly turn the temperature up, he'll sit right there and think he's taking a nice hot bath until the temperature gets so hot that he just dies. This thing that he's talking about, inclusion, that means pushing everybody together and making all races one race. That means eugenics programs and mixed breeding and open borders and letting everybody in from every direction, health care for everybody, UBI, which is a universal basic income, which means nobody will have any desire to work because they'll get just enough to survive on. And that's just the nature of the beast. So, let's hear what else the guy has to say.
More sustainable, because we know now that the next crisis is already waiting for us around the corner, and it is the climate crisis. The World Economic Forum, by the way, has warned the world related to the to possible pandemics since years, and actually 3 of the major organizations now in the fight against...
Yeah, it's easy to warn the world about possible pandemics when you're the guy creating the pandemics. I don't know if this guy personally is doing it, but believe me when I tell you they're man-made pandemics.
The virus, like the Global Fund, particularly also CEPI, all those organizations were created in Davos. So we know that the next crisis may come on us, and we have to be better prepared. So what does it mean in practice? 5 things, 5 priorities. The first one is we have to redefine our social contract to integrate more inclusion. We also have to make sure that we integrate much more in the social contract our responsibility towards the next generation.
Listen here, Klaus, we already have a social contract. It's called the Constitution of the United States of America. And in it, it gives us certain inalienable rights that you are attempting to tread all over. And I promise you, America won't stand for that. I promise you, there's enough guys in the South with arsenals in their basement that you will be unsuccessful in your endeavors.
We cannot just think of the debt, leave all the solutions and to be paid for by the next generation. So the social contract, and in the social contract, we also have to look at one specific issue. So COVID will create again a gap between the so-called industrialized and emerging countries. The emerging countries, at least some of them, suffering much more compared to some of the countries which have a well-established social safety net. Then second, so it's a social contract. Second, it's the decarbonization of the economy to protect us against let's say, an environmental virus. And here we will publish tomorrow, by the way, a report which shows clearly that there is no contradiction between taking care of nature and particularly creating the need to create jobs and to invigorate the economy.
Yeah, they are slowly but surely taking those freedoms away from us. Like Kevin says, we've already had the rights to a speedy trial taken, and the right to a jury trial has been suspended. Next to be the right to travel. The big one will be when the government takes guns. Yep, that's happening. Biden has already said that he was going to put Beto O'Rourke in office as the gun czar. And Beto O'Rourke does not know the difference between a assault rifle and a hunting rifle. He thinks that all rifles are military grade. He has no idea. And then you got AOC in the squad, and they're coming up in power, and pretty soon they're going to be in the Congress. And when they get in Congress, a lot of things are going to change in this country.
Just to give you one figure, which has been calculated, if you take an investment of $300 billion dollars or euros, it could create in the nature-based economy something around 400 million additional jobs. So, social contract, green economy, but number three, and that's a major part also of the book, because, you know, I published 4 years ago the book, The Fourth Industrial Revolution. All those technologies are very much advanced now by COVID. Everything will be digitalized, which can be digitalized. How can we use the technologies to address the challenges, but at the same time, make sure that we create the necessary ethical, human-oriented principles around those technologies?
Yeah, this guy looks almost excited, doesn't he? He's a little bit giddy under the hot under the collar about getting technology involved. Well, that's why the big tech companies have been censured for censorship for the past 4 years, and it's getting worse and worse and worse and worse, and nobody's doing anything about it. And you could say, well, why don't we just stand up and fight? Well, we are standing up and fighting, and then we tell our grievances to the congressmen, and the congressmen tell it to the Senate, and the Senate sit on their hands and do nothing. Republicans and Democrats alike. You had your chance. You were warned. You were told for 4 years, vote Trump, because if Biden gets in office, all hell's going to break loose. And it wasn't good enough because they were able to cheat, and they were able to slide him in the 11th hour at 4:30 in the morning when the votes went and flipped. And now we got a possible president-elect who, by the way, has not won yet, so don't listen to the news when they call him president-elect. The Electoral College has not voted yet. That doesn't happen until December 14th, and then January 20th after that, if it goes to the Supreme Court. So we got plenty of time for Trump to pull out an all-Hail Mary and win by miracle. But if he doesn't win, you can look for the next 4 years to be, at the very least, shocking in culture, because everything is going to change. This guy's talking about creating 400,000 jobs or something like that. Well, Trump's been creating jobs by bringing steel mills back and by bringing industry back and manufacturing back, things like that. Well, while they're talking out of this side of their mouth, talking about creating jobs, out of this side of their mouth, they're going to be sending all those jobs back overseas. And then we will, again, not produce anything in this country, just like we always have been since Clinton got in office and he started dismantling America one piece at a time. Bush didn't help. The only president we've ever had since Ronald Reagan that has done a damn thing about bringing economy back to this country is President Trump. And if they would have let him do what he tried to do, we would have been a lot better off. But they caught him at every corner. He was locked up in court. Every decision he tried to make overturned by the Ninth Circuit most of the time. a circuit that has no idea what the middle of America wants. They're wrapped up in California, and that's all they know is what happens in California. There is an outline of this, and it sounds crazy. However, crazy shit is coming true. Buy toilet paper and the essentials and stock up. There is going to be a second and then a third shutdown. I believe that. I believe they're going to do everything in their power to wreck this economy. That's why I'm letting you guys see what this guy's talking about, because it's coming. Believe me, it's coming. It won't be too much longer, and you won't be able to make any money in this country. You'll have to depend on the government to give you a stimulus check or a universal basic income, and that will be the only way that you get any money coming in. April says he may be allowed to have a BB gun. I don't know if they would take that or not. It's going to be on like Donkey Kong. Will this guy have a say? This guy wrote the book, the literal script that they're following. So, yeah, he has a say. Cigars and bourbon. Hell yeah. And Mountain Dew. I'm just trying to get everything situated so that I can protect myself. If you don't think they'll take your rights away from you, you are sadly mistaken. They certainly will. They'll make it so you can't defend yourself. They'll put you up against 5 lawyers and you only have one, and it's one that they appointed to you. And let's see what else this guy's got to say.
So, finally, what is the role of companies in this new post-COVID era? I think we are moving from short-term to long-term, from shareholder capitalism to stakeholder capitalism. The COVID...
You mean from capitalism to communism, because that's exactly what you're describing.
Crisis has shown that companies who invest into their vitality instead of prioritizing short-term profits have performed much better. And that's what the stakeholders will expect in the future. And I should add at last the need for much stronger global cooperation. COVID has shown us that we are globally interdependent, and I think it's a wake-up call to work in the future together to address all the consequences and to create a reset in our economic, social, ecological thinking.
But what if we want our country to stay the same? What if we don't want a reset? You ever thought about that? What if we want to go back to the way it was before you stuck your fingers into it? You and people like you. Because all of this is a product of your kind trying to take over and gain power. All of it. You don't get power. What you get is a small government that controls a large country. Controls it by keeping its roads clear and new, by keeping schools built, by keeping bad people off the streets, by putting out fires, by having a military to defend the country if somebody attacks it. No other reason. But that's not what you're trying to do. You're trying to set up the same kind of circumstances that was in 1930s Germany, right here in America. And you're going to get the same results. Promise. Because if you try to take over the world, somebody's going to try to stop you.
Thank you.
Klaus, thank you very much. Thierry, you co-wrote this book. What are some of the major macro and micro impacts of the pandemic that you've observed?
Thank you, Adrian. Well, the perspective we've adopted with Professor Schwab is another all-encompassing one. So we decided to favor a holistic approach, considering that in today's world it doesn't make any sense to have a silo approach. The reality is that the world is completely concatenated. So if just one word were to define today's world, it would be interdependence. We live in a world of systemic connectivity, meaning that the risks conflict with each other. So the main findings of the book, I think, pertain to the fact that risks create ricochet cascading effects. And we provide different examples in the book. So for example, macro, if you use a simple framework to think about the world, if you consider macro categories in terms of economic risk or opportunities, geopolitical.
Sports update. It's the Hyper Bowl. Oregon is in all yellow. Oregon State in all orange. Looks like a bunch of lemons and oranges playing score to score. Who cares? They are playing in the Pac-10. Them damn Oregonians. They ain't never met a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. I don't know what I'm talking about. You see, this and all things like this are just par for the course. If you've read the Bible, then you know these things have to occur. They're going to occur. The tribulation is coming. It does not get better, it gets worse. That is why community is so important. I'm trying to build a community. You're part of that community. If you betray me, then I'll wash my hands of you, and there'll be no more. You will cease to exist. If you stand up for each other, you become strong. You have a organization, an organism that cannot break. It can bend, but it won't break. But it takes many people to build that. People that are trustworthy, people that are honest, people that are strong. That's why community is so important. If you don't have that, you don't have anything. Go out, make life, make friends, be honorable. That's the most important advice I can give any person. Be honorable. Because if you don't have honor, you don't have anything. But know that all of these things must come to pass. The end is coming. I don't know how long it's going to take. It may not happen entirely in our lifetime. It's been going on for the last 1,000 years. Slowly but surely, one thing after another. There's a few things that have to happen before the end gets here. But believe me when I tell you that things are going to get rough. And they're going to get so rough for about 3.5 months that nobody will be able to withstand it if it took any longer. That's why Jesus shortened the time, so that even for the elect's sake, because they wouldn't be able to withstand it either. That's how bad it's going to get. That means regular folks like you and me don't stand a chance. It's got to go that way. There is no way out of it. There is no reprieve. It doesn't matter who's in charge. It doesn't matter who makes decisions. It doesn't matter who stands up and fights and dies. It's going to happen. The best thing you can do, like Kevin said, is prepare. Get all your stuff together, find a place where you can be safe, and prepare. Hunker down, because it is coming. Make no mistake about it. It's not even the power they're taking everyone and trying to brainwash them. They've done enough with this century from now back to when the internet came out. Yep. And they're doing it in schools. It started about 5 years ago. Actually started about 20 years ago, but it got in full force about 5 years ago. Maybe about 10 years ago, somewhere in that area, between 2016 and now. They started actively teaching children opposite of what their parents were teaching them. They started actively twisting facts and leaving details out of historical things. So now you've got an entire generation who does have no idea how we got here, who has no idea what this country stands for, who died to save it, or why they did it. Those are the people that are out in the streets burning buildings down, tearing statues down right now. And it's going to get bigger. That's just the latest generation. There's a whole nother generation right behind them coming up in the same schools, and it's going to be even worse that time. It's the young people that are the locust army that's mentioned in the Bible. And they're swarming around right now as busy as they can be. And it does not ever stop. It's going to keep getting worse and keep getting worse. The only thing you have is God and your community. That's why it's so important. That's why I take this preemptive action to begin this ministry, because it's important and it's going to be needed sooner rather than later. And it's open to all who can stand the rules. And the rules are, you must be trustworthy, you must be honorable, you must stand for each other. If you can't do that, you are the dirt out from under my fingernails. It is most definitely God's plan. And a lot of people can't swallow that because it's going to get bad, and they don't understand how God can allow bad to happen. But that is necessary to call his community back, because right now it's full of people that aren't welcome in heaven. But the bad has to happen to solidify the good, to put the seal of God in one's mind. That's what it talks about when it says the right hand or the forehead, just like with the devil. It's either doing the thinking or doing the work of the devil. That's the mark of the beast. Well, God has a mark too. It's called the seal of God, and it's either in your right hand or your forehead. That means the gray matter between your ears. If you know the truth, if you know the key of David, if you understand the rules, then you have the seal of God and you are saved. There are a shocking number of people that do not know those things. And it's simple, very simple. No, I said the children that are out in the streets burning building down will be the locust army. You have a say whether or not it's your children or not. At least right now you do. Won't always be that way. There will come a time when people will come for your children. Believe me. And it ain't just children, it's young adults, some old adults. Most older adults at this point know better because they were alive before 2000. Anybody that was born in 2000 and up, they stand the risk of being part of that locust army. Depends on what's in their head, what they're thinking about, whether or not they've been brainwashed into this new way of thinking. It's a bad situation no matter how you look at it. But if you have children and you can manage to spend more time with them than the enemy does, teach them right from wrong, and they stand a chance of getting out of it and not being part of it. But it's hard to compete with how many hours a day they're exposed to the wrong way of thinking as opposed to your knowledge of what they're learning. And most people would never even imagine that they would send their kids to school and their kids would be corrupted at school. Most people think they're safe when they go to school. They're not. That's the place where the damage is being done. That and on the internet and in the cartoons they watch and in the books they read and the magazines. Just take a moment and look at what your kid is absorbing. Just look at the things they're reading and the things they're watching, and you tell me if you can compete with that, if you're teaching them better. And that's all there is to it. Unfortunately, some of us wasn't on time. Some people didn't see the danger until it was too late. Hopefully, other people can catch it before it happens. But make no mistake about it, it will happen. And when it happens, your whole world will fall out from under you. You will be devastated. You will not have a clue where that bullet just came from. And it'll take a lot to piece it together. But then you'll remember that I told you, and you'll be like, oh yeah, that's what's going on. Hopefully. That's the worst case scenario. Hopefully, God puts his hedge of protection over the rest of us and keeps safe. And it may be that some of us have a purpose. It may be that there's a reason some things are allowed to happen. I'm not the guy that can tell you that. All I can tell you is what I know and what I've learned by reading the Word of God. And I'll do that because that's what I'm called to do. Other than that, you're kind of on your own. It's between you and God. I do think it's important for there to be an intercessor, though, somebody that makes it where you're not by yourself. And that's where I come in. That's why I built this ministry, and that's why I'm going to grow it, and that's why it's going to be successful, because somebody needs to be there so that you're not by yourself. And I mean you in general, not you personally, because it can be a terrifying place to be all alone in this world. Maybe Klaus and his buddies need to get laid. Maybe they need to eat some mushrooms and get a new perspective. That's what I'm saying. I will chip in some money if that keeps them from taking over. Oops. Cash has no value. It has value to me. Chip has some money to me. Damn, man. I'm just kidding. Oh, yeah. That's part of the problem, believe it or not. It's a Puritan way of thinking. It's a left-wing view of the world. And there is some perversion that goes along with it. And that is kind of the problem. It has something to do with it anyway. These guys are uptight and they're power hungry and they've got a little bit of taste of it and they want more. All these governors that are locking down locking down counties, they don't have the power to do that. Governors don't write laws. Yet they're issuing mandates left and right. Well, why are they doing that? It's because they're drunk on power. Because they got a little power when this pandemic hit and everybody was terrified because they didn't know how bad it was going to be. And they got some extra power that they didn't have before, and now they don't want to let it go. And now they're doing arbitrary lockdowns that don't have any value whatsoever, just other than locking people down. There's people that have restaurants that are refusing to shut it down because it's the only way they can make a living, and they're fining them like $11,000 a day for staying open. That's ridiculous. They shouldn't be allowed to do that. And I can't imagine how it's going to shake out in the end. But I do know this. When the people that are in charge are the ones that are attacking you, you have no one to go to. There's no one above them to go to. So they're not going to get in any trouble for doing it. And you're not going to get any justification for them doing it to you. So the only chance you have is to ride it out and hope that you don't get caught up in it. There's nobody going to go to jail for this, I can tell you that. Because they protect their own. They got their own community. You're already like that? I hear you. Oh, I take no offense. You got to get hard again. Yeah. I don't know if I can get hard again. I think those days are behind me, honey. Some places close by are already in lockdowns. So far, and thank God they hadn't enforced that around here yet, but they may. It may come to that. We do have a liberal governor. All right, Kevin. Don't make me separate you two. I'll send you some little blue pills and you can start lifting weights. You gotta be strong, that's for damn sure. All you got to do is have faith and know that all these things have been worked out already and we just have to live through them. The Bible says that if you endure to the end, you will have the full salvation. You have to endure to the end. You can't cop out. You can't take the easy way out. You got to take the hits. You got to take the damage. But if you endure to the end, you get the full salvation. You're good to go. All you have to do, the only prerequisite required, is to believe in God, and you will have everlasting life. That's it. So you're good. And we, the people with the seal of God, know this. And we're safe. That does not mean that damage isn't going to come our way. That does not mean that it won't get very hard. It just means that we're safe already. No matter what happens to this body, what comes next is already set in stone. Don't send blue. Can't handle that, huh? I was just kidding. I wouldn't put you in that mess. You get those things from the doctor, and it says on the bottle, it says, if this persists longer than 4 hours, consult your doctor. I'm like, if it persists longer than 4 hours, I'm consulting everybody. I'm telling everybody. Be proud of that. All right. Let's see what else we got here. Listen to what this guy has to say. This is just a guy like me who's saying what he's learned.
In the scriptures in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, it talks about the rise of Antichrist, the man of sin, the son of perdition, the great political leader that's going to rise to power in the very last hour. It speaks there in verse 7 concerning the mystery of iniquity. What is the mystery of iniquity? If we understand the mystery of godliness, which is God manifest in the flesh, then we will understand the mystery of iniquity. It is Satan revealed in the flesh. It is his man placed in politics amidst the economic and religious scene of our world, rising to power amidst the confusion of the last days. We know if we look at the history books concerning the rise of Hitler and Nazi Germany, how out of the confusion of economic chaos, that man rose to power from the end of the 20s up through the 30s until he brought the Second World War to bear. Right?
Now, you see, that's exactly what I was just saying a minute ago. It's exactly the same set of circumstances that brought that guy in is that's going to happen right now. And what happens when you lose control, when you become a threat to yourself and others? That's why you have a community to rely on, because one can tell you, hey, you're stepping out of line, or hey, do you need any help? Or hey, blink 3 times if you're okay. That's why you have strong community. That's why we need each other. That's why it's so important to band together in times like this. Because there's going to come a point where that option isn't available. And if you don't have a strong community to rely on, to back up on, you're going to be out swinging in the wind right by yourself. Everybody needs a community. Everybody needs life. Everybody needs leadership. And that is the purpose for all of this. Now, this guy is saying exactly what I said, but in so many other words. But it's the beginning of the end when the economic system starts to break down. Just like with those mouse utopian experiments that I showed you Wednesday night, when civilization gets to a certain point, a certain group of them will break off, and those are called the beautiful ones. They only care about themselves. They spend all their time grooming and wearing nice clothes and being a status symbol, but they're not producing any life. They're not mingling with other people. They're mixed. They're by themselves. They're separated, is what I'm saying. And that's the 1%. That's the large group of people that we're seeing right now doing that very thing. They're androgynous. They have no features. You can't tell one from the other. They're not male or female. They're not strong or weak. They're just right in the middle, everything in the middle. And they groom and they take care of themselves, but they don't take care of anything else. They have no ambition. They have no drive. And that is the last thing to go before the economic structure falls. And we've been seeing that for the last 15 years. And now it's time for the economic structure to fall. And mark my words, it will. And when it does, and COVID is the reason they're using, the excuse they're using to put all this into play. Now, they may not be successful. They may not get away with it. There may be enough good people still left in the world to stop them. But every year they try, and every year they get a little closer. And pretty soon, they're going to topple over the top because there won't be enough people to stop them. And when that happens, just like with cancer, you get cancer 3 or 4 times in your life and you don't even know it. It's that one time that your body can't fight it off that you learn about it, and then you die from it. Because it's constantly trying to break your immune system. It goes in and hits that immune system and can't beat it, so it goes away. It comes back, hits that immune system, looking for weaknesses, it can't beat it, so it goes away. It comes back again and finds a hole, and boom, you got cancer. That's how it works. That's the same thing these people do. They just keep looking for weaknesses. They tear down a few statues here, they burn down a few buildings there, they set up some countries within countries, and next thing you know, they're running the country. And then after that, it's all downhill. And there's nothing you can do to stop it. All you can do is prepare for it.
Across Europe, I want to assure you again that I believe that out of an economic crisis, we are going to see a political and religious and economic system arise upon our world, the likes of which we have never seen before. This is part 2 of the Great Reset. You'll know that 10 days ago I dealt with part 1. And just a few days ago, little did I realize, a friend pointed out to me that next week on the 2nd of November, the Time magazine is going to be publishing the next edition of their magazine, and it's called The Great Reset. I don't believe it's an accident that they're printing and publishing that on the day of the election between Trump and Biden in America. You see, in that magazine, it actually has one article depicting what our economic world is going to look like in 2023 and how we solved, over the next 2 years, how we solved the economic situation. They say in that particular article, the US began its new approach to things after November the 3rd, when Joe Biden defeated Donald Trump. You see,
which he has not done yet, by the way. Isn't it weird how all of the news and all of the media all over the world have already assumed that that's the future we have? Well, what if Trump actually wins? Then what? Are they going to retract all those newspapers and all those media spots? All those people calling him President-elect Biden? No, he's already building a cabinet. He's already putting together his system, his administration. He's already taking meetings with world leaders. He shouldn't be doing that yet. He hasn't been elected. But he is. And that means that we're going to be faced with two presidents. The left president and a right president. And we're going to see what happens then. We're sitting on a powder keg ripe for a world war, or at least a civil war. And nobody is trying to defuse it.
Magazine believes that the election in America is even tied into the Great Reset. Now I know I've at least got my American friends, I've got their ears as we begin to deal with the Great Reset Part 2 here. It is timely that we have been dealing with it and are dealing with it again. You'll remember last time in Part 1, we looked at the World Economic Forum and how it has been used in this crisis this year. I believe the crisis of COVID-19, of the race riots, of all that's happened through this year, is a smokescreen to hide what is about to happen. Even the election that's going on in America, that is not the real issue of the hour. I believe behind that is an agenda and something coming forth, the like of which most do not realize in this hour.
Yes, it's called Event 201, and they were practicing it in 2018, and they're doing it now. It's called the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. Notice how no one is telling you, if they were actually concerned about your health, notice how nobody on TV is telling you to take vitamins or to exercise or to get plenty of sunlight or to get fresh air or to build your immune system. Nobody's telling you that. They want you wearing a mask and locked down, and that's all they're talking about. That is called an agenda, and they're pushing it with every channel there is. Even Fox News is involved. Even Fox News. That ought to tell you right there that something's bad wrong. Because they were the Republican channel for a long time, and they are not slacking off in views. They are the most popular channel there is, and they're going left. Wonder why? Because that's going to be the only position to take when the shit hits the fan. They're hedging their bets. They're protecting themselves. It's a defense mechanism. That's why they're going left. The only one left is Tucker Carlson, and even he's got a leash. So you have to watch out for that. Yes, I'm not saying they'll be successful. I'm just telling you what's being set up. They may very well get defeated in the 11th hour, and they may very well not succeed this time, but they'll try again later. They've been doing it over and over again for the last 200 years. What do you think the AIDS virus was? It was another attempt. It was an attempt to break down the economic system. Fox was bought by Disney, yes, among other things. And Disney owns a lot of stuff. But, like I said, Fox has the highest ratings of any television show because they are right-wing. And they're going left against their own interests. Now, Disney is a business. If Disney was making a killing with a right-wing propaganda program, they would keep it right-wing propaganda program because it's making a killing. But it's going against its own interests. It's going to actually hurt itself to go left. So that ought to tell you right there that there's something going on behind the scenes, more so than just a business deal. But Disney bought almost everything. I mean, they own just about everything. There's like 4 other places. And everybody else is owned by Disney. Please take a moment and like, subscribe, and share. Hit that bell icon. Let me know where you're at. Follow the links in the description below. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you're thinking. Challenge me. Curse me. Bless me. Agree with me. Disagree with me. just let me know you're thinking about me. But if you really want to help out, if you want to get this ministry going, if you want to help kickstart us, if you think that we're useful and that the information that comes from this podcast is valuable, then help us out by going to paypal.me/JakeJohnsonBand. Every little bit helps. It's a tax write-off for you. It's a benefit for me. It's a win-win. And thank you for that. All right. I don't want to go any further into the documentaries because they just get redundant after a while. You got the idea. The idea is that there are forces at work right now to fundamentally change the country into something it's never been before, to where you will not recognize it. I already don't recognize it. I already don't know what's going on, because they are trying to turn our country into something that it's never been designed to be, and that is a socialist, communist organization. And I don't know if you're aware of this or not. You can look into it if you don't believe me. But in every country that has ever tried communism, it has always ended in starvation and genocide. Always. There has never been a successful chance. The only time that communism works is if you've got 12 people on an island. Then communism will work. Then it makes sense to share everything with everybody. But you got 300 million people and immigrants coming in from every border. Communism is not the way to go, I promise. You must protect your interests. That's why capitalism works. That's why we're the greatest country that the world has ever known. That's why we are the #1 superpower, because of capitalism. No other reason. And also, for a long time, this country was under God. And now they've removed God. So it's fair game for the rest of the world. And you're going to find out what not having God protect your country, what that can cause. And it is not pretty. You have to be cautious of the world you live in. You have to preemptively protect your own interests. Because if you allow communism to creep in, the thing that we broke the back of in the 30s and 40s, we broke communism's back. We destroyed the enemy, and we lived prosperously from then till now. And now it's rearing its ugly head again. It is healed and it's ready for an attack. And we must break its back again. We must stand up and protect our interests, because if we do not, we will end up going the way of Venezuela, going the way of Russia, going the way of Germany, going the way of Rome. I could go on all night. Every country that has ever tried communism has ended in starvation and genocide. Look at China right now. Christians are being beheaded in the streets. They're being sent to prisons. Muslims are. Everybody is. They have no freedom in China. The government sanctions your internet use. It tells you what you can and can't watch. It tells you when you can and can't go to work. They're implementing a system where you have to have good credit on social media to even get a job. You have to have enough upvotes to get a job. That's called communism. And it will fail. It always does. Be careful. You watched Fat Man? It was okay, wasn't it? I thought it was going to be a lot funnier than it was. But it wasn't a bad movie. It was definitely not woke, and that's a plus in my book. Well, it had one woke thing, but other than that, it was pretty okay. I didn't much like Mrs. Claus's relationship with Santa, if you know what I'm saying, but other than that, it was okay. And even that wasn't terrible. It wasn't like in your face. It was just kind of there in the background. But I guess they all have to do that in order to make a movie these days. The fact they didn't beat you over the head with it was a good thing. And I stand by it. It was a decent movie. This is a new form of communism called COVIDism. Yep. You're absolutely right. You got to be careful. You got to watch those people. You got to watch them. But again, and I've stressed this 2 or 3 times in this podcast, but it's on my heart, and I mean it. That's why community is so important. We have to have each other's back. We have to know we can count on each other. We have to know that when one is in need, the others will come running and build a wall and protect that person. That's why this is important, because it's going to come a time when we can't rely on the world anymore. We can't rely on the government now. Can't rely on them. It's been 12 months. One stimulus check. That ran out that month. People are starving to death. They can't go to work. They can't make a living. Some people have no choice but to rely on others. And if there's no one to rely on, they're up shit creek without a paddle. That's why this is important. We have to take care of each other. You hadn't seen it yet, April? It's a decent movie. I thought it was going to be better than it was. I really did. The previews of it made it seem like it was much funnier than it was. And it was a little bit morbid, but it was a good movie. And it was a movie that you could watch and not get beat over the head with politics and wokeness. So that, in my book, that made it a great movie. But as far as the writing, it could have been better. It wasn't Mel Gibson's best work by any stretch of the imagination, but it wasn't a bad movie. It was enjoyable. I found myself smiling through it several times, just at the absurdity of it. But I did think it was going to be better than it was. We need to build this community out with carpenters, electricians, lawyers, musicians, doctors. Somebody's got some medical information in their brains. You know, we need to get people of value in this community, because it's going to come a time when we need each other, and we may have to convene at the secret spot and build out our community and hold out until the war's over. I mean, that may come down the road. You are not on your own. You got me, for sure. You call me, I'll come running. That's how it works. And if you think I'm bullshitting you, you ask anybody that actually knows me and they'll tell you I'll come running. And I won't even ask you why. I'll just head out and make it to you and then ask you why. You watched it last night? It was a decent movie. You do? You do what? Remind me of the babe? What babe? But that's my goal. That's what I'm working on. I want to get some people of quality in this community that each have their own tasks and their own abilities. I love you too. Each person has a reason to be. Like, some might be able to sew, some might be able to cook, some might be able to, build a house, some might be able to fix a car. Those are the people I want in this community, because we're going to need it soon. And we're going to have somebody that we can call. And wouldn't it be great if they were right here Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday, and all you had to do was say, hey, I'm in need, and then somebody will pop up on the chat and go, hey, I got you covered. Where you at? That's what I'm talking about. That's power. And best of all, it's free. Doesn't cost anybody anything to know somebody and to be good to them. and underpin that with a healthy dose of the Word of God, and we got something. We got something worth being a part of, something to be proud of. I'm proud of you guys. Are you proud of this? I am. We didn't need to know that. Me too. Okay, well, I love you. I got a potty, but I'm listening. Hilarious. Come on, girl. You wouldn't be joshing a feller, would you? Scary. Scary at the notion. So, when you tell people about this podcast, this is what I want you to do. I want you to ask them 3 questions. Number 1, do you believe in God? Doesn't matter what the answer is, because if they come here, they're going to eventually believe in God. But it's important that the question is asked. Number 2, what are you good at? And number 3, are you trustworthy? If they answer yes to either one of those second questions, then invite them to come be with us. That's right. God, amen, freedom, love, peace. All I want for Christmas is freedom. All I want for Christmas is a Bible with big print, because I can't read their little print anymore. No, all I want for Christmas is friendship. That's what I'm after. Friendship is hard to come by these days. Real friendship. I'm not talking about acquaintances. I'm talking about people you can trust. That's what I want. I want that for you too. Matter of fact, that's my gift to you. A person you can count on. Now, let me explain it to you. I am a lot of things. Not all of them good, I assure you. I have a dark side. But there's one thing that I am, and I pride myself on it, and that is trustworthy. I am an honorable man. Whatever that means, that's what I am. And I give that to you freely. An honorable man that you can trust. Whatever that does for you, whatever that means in the future, know that you have a person that you can call anytime, day or night, and I'll come running without question. Ask Brian, he'll tell you. And you're my cousin, not my father. Faith, humbleness, loyalty, honesty, truth, and friendship. That's what's in your heart. That's what I'm after. That's what I want. And I don't just want that for me, I want it for you too. So when we build this community, 3 questions. Number 1, do you believe in God? Does not matter what you say to that question, because if you come to this podcast, you will eventually believe in God. Number 2, what are you good at? Do you have a skill? Is there something you know how to do that I don't know how to do? And number 3, are you trustworthy? Do you consider yourself trustworthy, valuable? You get those 3 things. If the last 2 questions are answered yes, the next thing you say is, would you like to come join a community and see what we've got to offer? I said dark side? Oh, I have a dark side. Yes, I did say that. And you're my father? Okay. Well, thank you very much, April, and that means a lot. Know that you belong here. This podcast was designed for you and me and everybody like us. no matter what happens in the world to come, there's two things you can count on beyond measure, and that is that God loves you and that you can learn something. You know those two things, you'll always be okay. You pick up that book and you read it, and you'll learn something that you didn't know before. Or you come here and I'll read it to you. Either way you want to do it. But this is proof positive that that's a fact. How do I know that? I've avoided it for the better part of 40 years. I've done everything in my power to not become a teacher. I didn't want to do it. But I've been called the whole time. Well, when I ran out of options, I decided to give it a shot. It's not very noble on my part, but that's what I did. I probably should have done it 25 years ago, but I'm doing it now. And that's how you know you can count on it, because it ain't my decision, ain't my choice. This is not from a man, this is from your Father. Every word that proceeds out of my mouth on this podcast comes from my Father, because I ask him every time, and I don't put any thought into what I'm going to say. What comes out popped in my head. And if it popped in my head, I didn't put it there because I'm not thinking about it. That's how I know. And that's how you know. So we can shock them if they do wrong? Yeah. No, if they do wrong, they just get banned. I got a ban hammer sitting right here. You step out of line, you're gone. No questions asked. And I am not merciful when it comes to that, because I've got all of you guys to protect. Somebody comes in here stepping out of turn and talking a bunch of garbage, they'll disappear. This is my house. As long as you're in my house, you will respect me. And my rule is simple. Don't say anything to offend anybody that's in my house. That's it. Well, then you better get cracking. If you think God's calling you, you better start moving. Moving and shaking, honey. Because he ain't going to call you but for so long, and he'll stop. You see, I see that a little bit differently. I believe that what you've been doing already, he called you to do. And you know what I'm talking about. I believe that. Why do I believe that? Because I didn't ask for it. That's how I believe it. And it happened because it was necessary. And I think that God does things like that. He uses people that are able. I'm able to talk, so he uses me to talk. Are you leaving us? I'm sorry you don't feel good, man. Lord, touch my man Kevin and heal him from whatever his ailments are. Keep him safe and keep him under your arm. In Jesus' name, amen. I hope you feel better. Have a good night's rest, and I'll see you on Sunday when I'm going to get my gloves out and give that atheist a walloping that he ain't never going to forget. You do have a taser gun, haha. You better know how to use it then. And don't sit on it. I did that once, and it's not funny. It was funny afterwards, but it wasn't funny at the time. I had it in my back pocket, and I sat down on it, and it got me. It was electrifying. Our family is blessed. And we have different gifts too. That's correct. And I will help you with yours just like you're helping me with mine. All you got to do is get started. Or whatever it is you're doing. And I got you back. I'm available for that wedding too, whenever it happens. You're welcome, honey. I hope it helps. And now it's 10 o'clock, so I must bid you adieu. Press all the buttons, do all the things, hit all the bells, follow all the links. You know the drill. You're scared? Don't be scared. Be strong. Grit your teeth, ball up your fists, and walk head first into the first thing that scares you. Don't let it dominate you. You are the captain of your ship. You can sail it out across the 7 seas, or you can drive it right into the rocks. It's entirely up to you. Oh, you're scared of the taser. I got you. Huh. Well, it is 10 o'clock, so I'm going to go watch some news and start preparing for Sunday. I love you all with all of my heart and soul. Join me on Sunday and Monday for the truth. Chapter, verse, book, explanation, understanding. That's how it works. I hope you all have a good night. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving. Thank you for hanging out with me for so long. I will see you mañana. Peace out.